All right, we've got the infamous, I think that's the right word, infamous Matt Osborne here. So, Matt, you are a legend, and I think, a lot of my rookie owners probably don't know a lot about your story, but I'd like to just start off with just a quick snapshot of who exactly is Matt Osborne. When did you start? What's your journey? If you could give us maybe a 4-minute snapshot, that would be awesome.
All right. Well, let's see. Grew up in Ohio, in Canton, Ohio, where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is, and went to college in Ohio. And a few days after graduating, a company had hired me out of school, and they moved me to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the company is even to this day, they're considered the 10 most oh gosh, what is it? Admired companies or something like that, or companies to work for, very corporate. And I thought I had just landed the job of all jobs. And they took care of me. And just within 6 weeks, I realized that was it wasn't my cup of tea. And it was mainly because the promotions were based on how long you had been there, and your compensation was based on how long you had been there. And I was literally the last person hired. So there was no competition, and or there were any competitive aspects to it. Literally, people were hanging on for however long it was going to take for them to retire. So I ended up it took me it took me about 18 months to get the courage to leave that company. And I did um, by going down and interviewing with an office down in Atlanta. And oddly enough, they were the polar opposite. It was competitive, and it was you're going to get promoted based upon your production and what you contribute, and your compensation was based on that. So um, I started working there. 10 months later, as an assistant manager. 6 months after that, was got promoted. So I moved from Atlanta to Philly, lived there for a couple years, maybe almost 2.5, then moved out to LA. Probably, I think we had offices probably a mile and a half away from each other, but we never saw each other, and we didn't even recruit the same folks, that's how big LA is. Lived there for a few years, moved to Boston. And since then, I've been married, have 3 kids, run offices in the Bay Area, Scottsdale. Been promoted to obviously to ownership and org consultant, senior national consultant along the way.
Yeah, you've definitely been somewhat of a gypsy, like literally living in, I don't know how many cities that you've lived in, but you, it seems like to me that you've moved a lot. You're living in Boston, you're living in Walnut Creek, now you're in Nashville. I'm not even sure how many cities you've lived in, but it seems like a lot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
6 cities.
6 cities, 4 different time zones.
Okay. 4 different time zones?
Yeah.
Mountain.
Yeah, I got that Arizona time zone, whatever that's called.
Got it. Got it. There's one in Newfoundland that's got it's an hour and a half ahead of Eastern Standard Time. Can you imagine an hour and a half, like 30, that extra 30 minutes? Like, oh, what time is it there? It's 4 o'clock here in Newfoundland. It's 2:30 Eastern. Like that would mess with my brain. Never been
Yeah,
to
that's odd.
Newfoundland, but that's how they roll there. Hey, so I've never fact checked this. I've heard this before. I want to, this is my first time fact checking it with you. I heard that in your preliminary interview, you said you're looking for something commission based, something merit based. You want to grow based on your own merit, almost like a dream interview. Is that true?
Yeah.
I mean, how were you like that before coming into the business? I mean, everybody would think that they're set up or something like that if they had that kind of interview.
Well, there is a piece to that. That's uh, prior to me interviewing in the office in Atlanta, I was down there interviewing with other companies. I wanted to move to Atlanta because that's where a lot of my fraternity brothers were living. And I moved down there, or I was thinking about moving down there, and I was interviewing. And one day I was supposed to go on an interview had like a called a 12 o'clock PM interview. And as I was leaving my buddy's apartment, I I saw someone at a swimming pool, and I decided I wasn't going to go swim or go interview. I thought I was just gonna I was gonna go swimming. I mean, it's so ridiculous, but I was like, all right, well, hey, look, I'm going to go. There's somebody hanging out the swimming pool. Let me go there. I've already interviewed with a bunch of companies. I ended up meeting this girl there, and she tells me that she had worked with John Wiggins prior. So she had worked with him for like 6 months, and she had told me like this is she had asked me questions like, so what do we actually we started talking, and then she's like, do you know this guy? And and I go, yeah. And she goes, you're so and so. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I heard you might be moving down here if you got a job. She's like, I'm friends with, so we had mutual friends all, and we had just heard each other's names. And she's like, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know, but I want to be in sales. I just want to go, I want to see, I've never really done it professionally. And I just want to go see what I can do. And I want to compete. And I told her, I go, I would dig ditches if I had to, because I wanted it to be. And then I told her, because I'm just really competitive. She's like, wait a second. She's like, let me tell you this. I used to work for this guy in this company named John. This guy named John, and this is what they do, and blah 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 blah. And then I was like, really? So then she spent a couple hours explaining to me kind of the path in front of me. Should I be interviewing there, and should I? So I was like, sounds amazing. And I even asked her questions like, so what's the catch? Like, what's the catch here? What's the deal? And she's like, the catch is that everybody thinks they're the most competitive person, and everybody thinks they work hard, and everybody thinks they have grit and determination, and everybody has a little bit of it. And she's like, most people just give up when it gets hard. And I was like, well, that's not me. And she goes, you sound like everybody else. So, and then she gave me John's phone number to his office, and I called. And so I had an idea. It matched, but I laid it on thick for him so that he would invite me back.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, to me, the big piece from that story is, you know, John had free advertising from an ex-rep. Like, so a rep that had a great experience, that didn't go the distance and, become an owner, is singing his praises. I mean, I think that's somewhat of a call out to all of our owners that, I mean, are all of your ex-reps and current reps, obviously, but are they raving fans, or are they leaving disgruntled? Would your ex-reps recommend your business? But I think that's pretty powerful that an ex-rep, recommended you join the business.
Yeah. And not only that, but we had mutual friends, and she wasn't going to push me in a direction um because we became friends. I ended up fast forward, I moved there, got offered the position, moved there, and just went from there. So um yeah, and what was neat about it is I got because she had told me so much throughout the second interview process. I didn't let anybody know, but I wanted to see if the stories were going to match up. And my leader wasn't, she wasn't like straddling the gray line. She was just telling me everything, and she was just, I think her spidey senses were going off because I was asking her a lot of deeper questions. She's like, man, you're really the question guy, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah. But what that woman had told me and what the leader who was interviewing told me, the stories matched up. And so um, I think that gave me a little bit of a leg up, because while I still had skepticism with anything new and something that seemed just incredible, I was like, all right, at least these two folks are telling me the same story.
Mhm. Awesome. All right, so that's the story. So you're like a 25-year vet. Does that sound about right? Are you counting the years? I'm counting in decades now, but are you around 25 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's two and a
Yeah.
half decades. Crazy oneies, huh? Time flies. Um, and so Matt, I'm going to pivot a little bit. I mean, I could be totally wrong on this, but my guess after listening to you for 25 years and watching your career and knowing you're a C-type personality, I would have to imagine that planning and preparing and strategizing are some of your strengths.
Yes, that's correct, Jamie.
So I'm curious to hear your kind of go-to when it comes to let's picture Matt Osborne, knowing what you know now, but you're Matt Osborne, the rookie owner. How do you walk into planning your week? How do you walk into, we're kind of approaching year end here soon. How do you approach your 2025 goals? Like just your thoughts on planning, preparing, whether it's weekly, whether it's quarterly or annual. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on planning.
Okay. I love talking about this because I really think planning helps me create a great life, you know? So um, here's what I'll tell you. The advice, and I think I've spoken, I don't know how many people I've talked to in the last 3 days, but this has come up 4 times, right? Already this week. And everybody from a consultant to a leader to an assistant manager and to an owner. I mean, this is comes up all the time. Here's what I'd say. Don't overthink it. Do not spend so much time on it, on the planning. Don't even obsess over it, because I think when you do that, you'll be less likely to actually want to do the planning. So I just tell people this: take 15 minutes. Take 15 minutes. And for most people, that's probably 15 minutes more than they usually take. So I usually just take 15 minutes, and I'll give you the basic version of a rookie owner. I would say take 15 minutes 2 days before the end of your week. All right. So take 15 minutes and say to yourself, what are the most important things that I have to, what's the one big goal that I want to accomplish this week? And then what are 3 things that have to be done in order for me to do it? Okay. So I get my brain thinking that takes maybe 30 seconds of the 15 minutes. So I go, what's the one big thing I want to accomplish this week? And what are 3 things that have to happen? Right. I do that. And then I have a value, like just a personal value that I have. And that is, I do what I say when I said I would do it. Okay. And so I've let people down over the years. I've tried to do things and I haven't done it. And I've been a little, just I've missed appointments, but I can tell you most of the time, I mean, majority of the time, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And it's not because I'm morally superior. It's just because I've planned it. And anything that gets written in a calendar or gets put into my schedule, I look at it like an appointment. And I don't miss appointments. And I was taught that by my mom. I remember I was 20 years old, came home from college over the holiday break. My mom came and knocking on my door on like a Tuesday morning. I'm probably hungover, and it's 8:30 in the morning. She's like, "Get up." I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Do you have a dentist appointment?" I go, "It's 8:30 in the morning. This might as well be 3 a.m. in the morning, right?" And she's like, it was, 10 inches of snow on the ground in Ohio, and we would not miss a dentist appointment for anything. And she's like, if you don't do it now, we're not going to be able to get in for another 6 months and blah, 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 blah. And I kind of just was like, yeah, when you make appointments, you follow through on them. So what I do every week is I'll put into a schedule, and it might be a Google Calendar. I do both. I do a Google Calendar and a written down one, simply because I like to have it here and then on my phone and write. I like to see it and write on it. But I just put my appointments in there. So if I'm an owner, I'm like, when I'm running, I'm like, it goes in there: leaders meeting, my one-on-ones, my coach's corner, when I'm going to run a meeting, my interview time. Okay. And that might take you for 5 days. Those are massively big rocks. Everything has to work around that. So, okay, I'm taking care of that. I write, you can, if I showed you this, I write down when I'm going to work out, who I'm going to talk to. And I just consider those appointments, and I don't miss appointments. And one of the things that this kind of a theme I've been getting this week. People are like, I'm pretty good at planning my week. I'm just pretty bad at following through. And I'm like, yes, this is like everybody, right? We all like to procrastinate. It sounds like a good idea when we're quiet with ourselves and we're planning the week. You know, that dinner with that guy on Tuesday night sounded like a great idea. And then you were going to go do that with this person and this, and this. It all sounds good. But then for some reason, as the week goes on, we tend to, I don't know about you all, but I tend to find excuses not to follow through on some of those things. Okay. So one of the tricks that I do, Jamie, and maybe this just works out for me is, and especially as a rookie owner, I remember it working until it just became a part of a pattern, is I would tell people I was going to do something with them, and I couldn't, I didn't have the heart, I didn't have the heart to say I wasn't going to go do it. So Susie, Susie and Billy, we're going to go grab a bite to eat after the field on Tuesday night at this time. I would send them a text or tell them that. And I'm telling them this, on Sunday. And then so and so, we're going to meet for breakfast on Wednesday morning. I'm excited to talk to you about this. And then I would make these appointments, so to speak, with people. I would even tell people, hey, I'm going to be in the field with you on this day at this time, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to work with you. So I would get everybody fired up about hanging with me or having a dinner or breakfast or one-on-one or me going into the field. So I couldn't back out. I couldn't get there. I just couldn't give myself, I couldn't back out. I would have to. What am I going to do? Say, sorry, I can't because I'm just too tired? Because a lot of times I don't do stuff because I'm just too tired or I just didn't feel like it or other things came up. So that's kind of how I prevented myself from taking the escape door or taking the easy way out at times. And I was even telling the story to somebody today. As a rookie owner, I remember I was like, all right, I'm going to get these guys fired up. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go full day in the field with somebody on a Saturday if we do this many sales like on a Friday and the whole lot. And I was like, all right, we're going to get a big bump out of this. And I was like, all right. And so if we hit this number, we're going to draw out of the hat and we're going to go do it. And I'll go in the field with you all day on Saturday. Well, we hit the number. Everybody's pumped. We go in on Saturday and I pull the name out of the hat. It happens to be our worst new girl. Like the girl that was going to quit like 5 days before, but kind of are hanging out, hanging around. She's nowhere near leadership. It snowed like 8 inches that morning in Philly. I'm freezing. I pull her name out and immediately I'm like, how do I get out of this? And, I went into my office and was like, you're not properly dressed for this. It snowed. You weren't ready. This isn't going to be a good time. Maybe your other leader can spend time with her. She really doesn't deserve to. All these things started talking me out of following through on my word. Can't remember. And then I just went, I can't do that. Like you gotta follow through. And I promise you, if I wouldn't have thrown that bonus that day or the day prior, I would never have gone out in the field that day. I just wouldn't have. I just knew it wasn't in me. Even though I was ambitious and I was a rookie owner and I had all these goals, I would have said it was too damn cold and our production was pretty good. But I went out with her and we had fun. And I'm glad I'm able to tell that story. But again, if I wouldn't have put it on blast, made it public, and then had that value of I do what I say I'm going to do, I don't think I would have done it. I read this too, Jamie, or heard this. I don't know if it's true or not, but they said like physicians say that their patients finish all of their prescription drugs that they're supposed to 70 to 75% of the time. And it's a big pain in the butt for physicians because they're like, if you would just finish out what you were supposed to, it would help. And then the veterinarians report that like 95% of their customers give their dogs and their pets all of the prescriptions. And the person, whatever the story was about, was people tend to let themselves down more than they're willing to let other people down. Right? Like we're more likely to feed our dogs the prescription than we are to feed ourselves. And we may have wives and husbands and children relying on us. And so I kind of thought about that psychology a little bit, and I was like, that seems to be true. And so that's why it's important to call your shot and to get other people involved with what you're doing, because it's for some reason I'm okay letting myself down at times, but I don't like letting other people down. And
Mm.
if that's what keeps you to stick to your schedule, then that's what it takes.
You know, just a cheeky little story I have. I remember years and years ago as a rookie owner, one year for Christmas, an exercise bike arrived at my house, and it was from Gary Polson. Nothing fancy, but just an exercise bike. My first thought is like, what's Gary trying to tell me? Like, Jamie, get off your fat ass. Like you're a little out of shape, right? So he gives me the exercise bike. But right before that exercise bike, I had taken my first Franklin Covey focus class, like, priority management, time management, that kind of thing. Fast forward the clock, 3 months go by and I lost, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 pounds or something like that. And Gary was like, "Oh, Jamie, you're losing weight. The bike that I sent you." And I'm like, "Actually, Gary, that thing's just a piece of furniture in the house. I haven't ridden the bike one time. I actually jog through my neighborhood, but I look at my workout as an appointment." And so because it's like a one-on-one, like I don't flake on it. I don't like, well, tomorrow, let's do it tomorrow. Because it's in my calendar, I do it. And so it doesn't surprise me to hear you looking at your, events or your goals or whatever the to-do list is as appointments. To me, I think that the question I have for you, the follow-up is, what about the owner? The struggle that I have a lot of times with really teaching this to owners or reps is that they don't have like a good calendar system. Like here's you if you've got a paper version, plus you've got an electronic version. You've probably got your calendar open most of the time, unless you're like, okay, I'm going to the gym, my calendar's not open, but you got the next 2 hours of like undivided attention on the gym. So, you've got your moments where you don't have to look at your calendar, but throughout the day you're looking at it. What do you say to the guy who's only using alarms or reminders? They haven't really had a calendar system. They've had no need really to have a calendar system. They just kind of lock it all up here in my brain. So what do you say to that guy that just doesn't have the appointments type of system yet?
That gives me anxiety just even thinking about that, right? Like when you said you probably have calendars open, look what's behind it's
Oh yeah.
open, right? It's open, and then right here, this is open.
Yeah.
My phone's just not, I don't, it'd be kind of rude for me to be staring at my phone right now, so I'm not on there. Um, Here's what I'd say. You probably people and what's that saying? You just have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. I I think I started adapting this in college, by the way, because I always felt like this anxiety of am I where should I be? And so I was never present in front of people. What am I forgetting? And then I was always felt like, and I always, when I describe it, I felt like I was always bobbing my head above water, trying to keep it above water, and always felt like, and then I was down. And then wherever I was always curious. Am I missing a class? Should I be at class? Should I be doing that? What am I missing? And I got really, I, it's kind of disgusting if that becomes your whole life because it hurts. It's painful. And then soon as I started writing, I just said write it. I would just write it down. And that was the first step. I had a pad of paper where I call it a brain dump. And I first started and I was like, all right, I got to take control of something in the world of things I can't control. And one of them can be my time and my focus and my presence. And I was like, that and my mental well-being, because my brain's not that big and I don't have much capacity to do two things at once. And I just decided I was going to write everything down. And I said, so what I did is I set a timer because I don't have a big attention span. And I said, for 5 minutes, I'm going to write everything down that I need to do. And I just started. And it went from I remember I was 23. I was like, get a haircut because I was like, my hair was a little, a little fuzzy, but and I'm like, all right, get a haircut. Um, Mom's birthday's coming up. Buy her a card, buy her a present. Get cream cheese, get bread, get some toilet paper, get some new razors, get your oil changed. I literally, and then I just sit there and I look at the clock and I'm like, dang, I got 5 more minutes. And then I wrote everything down. And then I made a kind of a rule. I tried to play this game for about a week and then it eventually developed into 25 years. I said, what I'll do is if anything comes to mind, do you guys ever do this? Something comes to mind, you're ready to do it, but then you don't write it down. And then 2 minutes, you try to remember what you were thinking about. And you're like, what did I do? And then you have to go back into that space and you're like, I don't remember what I was supposed to remember to write. So I made it a rule. So like I jump out of the shower to go write things down. And it might be something as simple as text so-and-so something. And so I'd have this long list and it would continually go throughout the day. This is when I was in the field. Anytime something would come up, like have a conversation about this, ask this question, I'd write everything down. And then when I'd get home from the field, I would go, okay, is there anything I can handle on this list today? And I would just start doing it. And I'd give myself, see how many of those things I could knock out in 30 minutes. And then before I went to bed, I would rip the sheet off and then transfer whatever I didn't get to. I'd put it on a new piece of paper and I'd tell myself, you can have a good night's sleep because you can't do anything else today. And then I'd wake up in the morning and I would, if new things came up for me, I'd write it down. And eventually that list went from 2 to 3 pages to 8 things I have to do. Like there's 8 things on my list right now today. And that list went from 3 pages. And what I found was I was like, now I was living life above water. Mm. And one thing it leaned into, and I didn't realize I was leaning into it, was there's something about that dopamine hit when you cross off something on your to-do list. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I got the eggs and the bread. And I filled up my car and picked up the dry cleaning. And you're like, and I got addicted to those things. And what I was doing was it felt so good that I was on my day off, I would go, let's get up early and let's see how many things I can crush on this list. And I found that I didn't have I was relaxing and wasting a lot of time, of course, but I was being pretty efficient with it. And then I'd get this unusual feeling of accomplishment by just having some clarity in my life. And even to this day, if I'm driving down the road and something comes up, I'm immediately texting it. I do a voice text to myself and I touch it once. If it gets in here, I want to get it out so I don't have to remember it. I can be focused on whatever I'm doing. And I just, so I have like a to-do list, but the to-do list is, 5 or 6 things been scratched off. I've added a few today and tomorrow it'll get to be about that size and I'll scratch those things off. And I think that's just a big part of planning. And then I want to say you become addicted to it. You become addicted to putting your time, effort, and energy into things that are important to you, things that are going to move your business and life forward. It gives you, and that's why I don't like when I go work out, like I schedule my workouts every morning. I don't have my phone. My phone sits in the corner of my gym and I'm just listening to podcasts or whatever I'm listening to. No one's calling me or texting me or emailing. No way. Because I want to get out of that workout as soon as possible. I'm also not looking at my phone in front of my wife or kids or even right now, simply because there's nothing pressing at this moment. This is the most important thing in the world at this moment right now, sitting in front of y'all. And my brain doesn't have to be wondering what's next, what's next, what's next. Now, what helps with that, Jamie, is what you just said, is there's something about viscerally being able to see it on a screen or seeing it on paper going, okay, I'm actually going back to the gym here in 45 minutes, but I'm going to be playing pickleball for a couple hours. So that's on my schedule. I know when I have to leave. I know I'm not going to talk for another 30 minutes, so I'll have enough time, you know? So I'm like, I can just be here with y'all. An alarm is kind of scary. I only use an alarm for when I wake up. Like, then I don't like that sound.
Hmm.
I
Got it.
don't
I mean,
do.
you must have that challenge though. You must have some guys like they hear your thoughts on planning. They're not writing it down. They're relying on their brain or they're setting reminders in their phones, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Well, I asked the question, when's the last time you intended to do something and didn't do it or forgot about it? And they usually just do this.
yeah, all the time.
And I go, ask me that question. And I go, guy, I can't, I don't remember. I
Yeah,
don't remember because I don't have to remember because, and Jamie, I think I got it from you. Own your, I'll use Sunday because maybe everybody starts their week on a Monday, but I'll go, own your schedule on Sunday, and Monday morning, your schedule owns you.
right.
That's all I do. The schedule is nothing more than the instruction manual of where my mind and body need to be. That's all it is. And I don't like making all these choices. I feel like I lose a lot of energy. I don't know about you all. I lose a lot of just emotional energy and maybe even physical energy when I'm trying to make choices all day long about things. I don't have to make a choice of where my body's going to be at 2:30 this afternoon because I knew I had an org call. And then I knew at 4:30 I was on the HEP call. And I know at 6 o'clock I'm going to be there. And then just it frees me up for any time in between I can be available for my people or whoever those people are.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just had a similar conversation with Dane this morning. I'm getting in the habit of dropping him off at school at like 6:30 in the morning. And so the habit is for Dane, I'm like, we'll talk about something, and then I'm like, oh, hey, shoot me an email, right? Like we're talking about something like there's a task to be done. I don't want to have to remember it. He's like, Dad, why am I always your secretary as we're driving? I'm your secretary riding shotgun with you in the car. I'm like, well, because I don't want the anxiety of having to remember that. I'm like, Einstein was the guy that's like, hey, if you can document somebody's phone number somewhere, like back in the day before obviously cell phones and stuff like that, well, like you do that. You want to free your brain up for creative thinking. You don't want to have to use your brain for like memory storage. Like what a waste of a supercomputer to waste it on having to remember things. I'm like, I don't want to have to remember anything. I want to just be free with my time. I want to think the way with clarity. I don't want to be bogged down. But if it's in an email, I can eventually turn that email into, it'll get plugged into a calendar, like, buying tickets for Red One. I mean, we got to jump on that quickly before The Rock, the Christmas movie, the Red One. If you guys haven't put that on your to-do list, put that on your to-do list. You want to go watch that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm totally in the habit of writing that down, putting it in the calendar so you don't have to think. So you can be clear. And it sounds like that's what you're doing as well too, Matt.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, whenever you think you have something that's good, you seem to find information or evidence to prove that it's right. But as an owner, we have so many important conversations with important people in our offices all day long. And a lot of them are emotional, not in the sense that they're stressful. They're just like, you got to be there with them, helping them through or guiding them or leading them or even being present. And you can screw those up if you're thinking about something else. I remember I was in Los Angeles. I remember in LA, and I remember the woman who said this to me because I'm still friends with her to this day. A woman named Amy Kramer. She said to me during a one-on-one, she said, "You're such an a-hole." I went, "What?" She's like, "We only have a 20-minute one-on-one, and you're looking at your phone." And of course I said, no, but so-and-so was texting me and so-and-so needed me. And I just needed to quickly do that email. I was listening to you. And she's like, you don't get it. You just don't make people feel good when you do that. Of course, I was embarrassed and kind of mad at her. And then I said, thank you for telling me that, and still was trying to justify it and stuff. And when she left, I was like, okay, put the phone, I literally would have to turn my phone off, turn it on silent, turn it upside down, and then knock and turn off my computer screen, or I would be distracted. And like that's just like another example of when it's not, when it's on paper, you aren't distracted by maybe some thoughts about other things, or like even when I do one-on-ones in an office, I tell let's say I do back-to-back one-on-ones, let's say 9 o'clock and then one at 9:30. I tell the rule is at 9:30, knock on the door. Why? Because I don't want to be looking at my watch while someone's saying something to me, because my brain's, so if they don't knock, they miss their one-on-one because I'm not even considering anything. And then they knock at 9:40 and they're like, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I'm like, come on, you know the rule. Come on in. All right, get out of here. We got to move on. But I think I can't think of and again, Jamie, when people hear planning, at least I did in the early days, when I heard planning, I thought of the most boring, horrifying task of all time. And then someone described it to me as, imagine if you're just writing a script of a movie that you want to, you're the main character of the movie and you're writing the script of your life. And that's what you're planning. And I was like, well, that sounds way cooler than planning. And they're like, you're just putting yourself in position to be the best version of yourself at different tasks. And I was like, well, that sounds better than planning. And then it frees you up to have, make connections with people while you're not thinking about other things. And I was like, all right, that kind of makes sense. So that's why I tell people, don't take 2 hours to plan. You may need to take 2 hours to plan, but let's just take 10 minutes, because once you get 10 minutes, maybe the next time you'll want to take 15. But at most, once you get really, really organized, I don't know about you, Jamie, but I don't need more than 30 minutes. I might need 15 to 20 to organize my next week. That's about it. Because I'm caught up already. How about you? Like, do you need a substantial amount of time?
When I teach a subject, like the task of planning is fairly quick. It's 15 to 20 minutes. The task of preparation is hours, but those aren't the same function. Planning and preparing aren't the same thing. So to plan your week and look at your calendar to be the architect, that doesn't take that much time to put the most important things in your calendar. But you got to block off big blobs of time to prepare your leaders meetings and prepare your morning meetings and prepare for the one-on-one. I mean, so I'll plan to prepare. So again, two different functions. That's how I teach that.
And I'll tell people about leaders meetings. 90% of people just fly by the seat of their pants. So take 3 minutes to prepare, and you'll watch all of your leaders walk into your office going, dude, that was the best meeting you've run in a long time. They always say that. You don't need an hour to plan. You literally take 5 minutes of prep for that leaders meeting the night before. Woo! You look like a scholar. You look like Einstein.
Yeah.
And you're
something Gary said to me years ago. This was interesting. He says, I hear you guys say a lot when he was new into the business. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That may or may not be true. I never heard anybody challenge that until Gary challenged that. That may or may not be true, but this I know to be true. When you prepare, people know you care. I'm like, oh, I mean, that really stuck with me. I'm like, it's so true. I mean, think of all the teachers you've had in school. Like, hey, those teachers that prepared and they were well-oiled machines coming into class, that was a good class. Even if I didn't like English that much, but I had this one English teacher who was so prepared. I got into The Great Gatsby with him because of his preparation and his combination of reading and videos and stuff like that. But he was prepared. He wasn't winging anything. And because he prepared, I knew he cared. So
I've never heard it that way, and I like it.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. Well, Matt, I appreciate your thoughts on planning, preparing. I mean, more to come in some of the future calls. I'm going to Brendan Fulkerson on what he's doing, preparing for 2025 and things like that. So more to follow on this subject. I think everybody's hamsters are running a little bit like, oh, gee, if 2024 was the year of the Mamba, what's 2025? What am I going to do in 2025? And so, again, a lot of people are asking about it. Matt, I know you're a superstar in this category. So thank you. I know you've got an appointment with your pickleball friends. So I don't want to hold you up from that appointment, Matt.
Yeah, I got some 70-year-old ladies to whoop up on.
That's right. No
Hopefully,
mercy on those old ladies,
no
Matt.
way. They don't want me to. They take the beating. It's great.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Matt.
All right, I'll see y'all.